Welcome to Poland Daily History with me, Nicholas Richardson. We're continuing our canter through the course of Polish history, and we're going to look today at the immediate aftermath of the Battle of Grunwald, which many people know as a great battle in Polish history. And I'm joined to discuss this with Professor Krzysztof Jabłonka. Professor, many people believe that following the result of the Battle of Grunwald, Poland did not really take advantage of the defeat of the Teutonic Knights, and yet there was, of course, a subsequent 13-year war. Could you tell us something about that?
Many are convinced that it was possible to benefit more from the defeat of the Teutonic Knights, but this view was imposed on us by the chronicler Jan Długosz, who was a great patriot and wanted everything to be recovered immediately. Meanwhile, let us remember that the greatest effect of Grunwald was not only hacking with swords, meaning the battle, but the understanding by the Polish elite, by knights, that one must go to help the nation at risk in its very essence, although they did not know where that nation lies. We must remember that back then there were no maps or mass information. Messages traveled by word of mouth. The knights said that we are going to save Samogitia, although we do not know where it lies. It is somewhere in our king's state. And they succeeded. We have to be proud of that. However, the rest, they were not prepared. The army, when it came to the capital of the Teutonic Knights, Malbork, did not even have ladders to conquer, because this was not the purpose of the expedition. We simply won more than we wanted. The order was to be defeated, Samogitia was to be saved, which was a success, and the breaking up of the order was the second part that fell on the shoulders of the king's younger son. The older king dies at Varna, however we do not know if he died or simply disappeared. It is still significant in history to this day. The fact is that the younger son, also bearing the name of Kazimierz, named Jagiellończyk after his father Jagiełło, started the war for the recovery of Pomerania. The inhabitants of Pomerania themselves, to a large extent Germans and Kashubians, of course the Polish knights of the Helmnoland, sparked an uprising. This is called the Prussian uprising or the Pomeranian one. They asked the king for help and the king accepted, paid homage to this land and said, "I am still the ruler here, the order reigns illegally in this land." There was a war whose first events were a terribly lost battle. The Poles are ashamed of it and it has not been properly described. There is no separate book of the Battle of Chojnice. The Teutonic Knights won their royal seal. The Poles simply lost in a very sad way. And hence, instead of 1 or 2 years, the war took place over the span of 13. Finally, in 2 great battles, one on land, called the Battle of Święciny in 1462, was won by Poles by organizing a mercenary army. The second battle at sea was organized by the inhabitants of Gdańsk, and the Teutonic fleet was defeated. After these 2 battles, the order fell on one knee, paid homage to our king in Toruń, and on the 500th anniversary of the baptism of Poland, in October 1466, the second Peace of Thorn was signed. The order became a Polish vassal, and the entire eastern Pomerania, Powiśle with Malbork, which the king bought, and the Helmnoland returned to the Polish crown.
And Professor, in 1525 there was a second instance of Prussia effectively paying homage to Poland. Can you say something about what caused this?
To był szczyt potęgi Jagiellonów, rzeczywiście.
It was the pinnacle of Jagiellonian power, indeed. Probably this fact would have escaped our countrymen if the great 19th century painter Jan Matejko had not painted a gigantic portrait in which Hohenzollern greets the Polish king on his knees. Of course, this was a reminder of the German ruler that once his ancestor knelt before the king of Poland.
Otóż ten klęczący Hohenzollern był siostrzeńcem tegoż króla.
Here a family secret must be revealed. The kneeling Hohenzollern was the nephew of that king, because his sister Zofia became the wife of the ruler of Brandenburg, and he was her son. Another thing, the order was dangerous, as long as it was connected with the German Empire and with Rome, where it had its lobby, which allowed it impunity, and not to reckon even with the fief, which they were obliged to.
ostatni mistrz krzyżacki postanowi uzdrowić sytuację. On widzi, że
The last master of the Teutonic Order decided to fix the situation. He sees that the population was still pagan and that the Teutonic Knights did not fulfill their role. He accepts reform. The Prussian state was the first Lutheran state, the first Protestant state in Europe. What is important, becoming a secular prince, he immediately came into conflict with the German Empire, which was still Catholic at that time, and his lands in the hands of his uncle. It took place solemnly for all of Europe to see, and above all, Kraków, on a huge elevation on the Kraków market on April 10th, 1525. From now on, every prince of this land paid homage to every Polish king.
Polski. Dodać należy jeszcze,
It should be added that he was a very loyal tributary and developed the Polish language in his territories, where the population spoke Polish and half of his principality was inhabited by the people of Mazuria.
wyginęły tam
Those tribes died there in the battles against the Teutonic Knights, and subsequently the Mazuria people entered with their speech. Lithuanians settled in from the north, and thus the Prussian principality was revived. Unfortunately, this ruler could not be looked after. He broke religious vows, married a princess, and his firstborn, his son, was intellectually disabled. He had to be cared for and lived for a very long time, 80 years, and then his distant relatives, who came from the German line from Franconia, took over. And they, unfortunately, already converted the Polish principality in these lands into the German principality, and it was the start of future Prussia, which united Germany against Poland. Unfortunately, we brought up vipers, and to this day Poles regret that this Prussian homage did not end the existence of the Polish state on our northern borders. And today's Kaliningrad Oblast, belonging to Russia, according to Escaet, is a remnant of those Teutonic times.
prawem kaduka do Rosji jest pozostałością właśnie owych krzyżackich czasów.
That's all we've got time for today, for this episode. So it remains for me to say thank you, Professor, for
Thank you
your
very much.
fascinating commentary on Polish history. Do join us again on Poland Daily History, where we look at the fascinating history of this exciting country.